By the way, you can hear cats eating in the background. I'm sorry about that. I asked myself a question this week. Well, I asked myself a lot of questions, but there's only one that's relevant to this video. And that is, what can I do to become a better movie buff? So let's talk about that. Hi and welcome to the channel. Let's talk about movies. So I've come up with 10 things that I think will make me a better movie buff, and maybe they will you too. You can always try it. So let's start it off. Number 1, get comfortable with subtitles. I appreciate that some people have reading difficulties, and those people keep using the dubbed version, whatever you need to do to watch the movies. But for those of us who don't have a reading difficulty, learning to use and appreciate subtitles is really important. You get the original actors' voices usually. You get the full emotional range of the person who is doing the performance and not somebody who's just dubbing it. And you get that kind of nuance that you would not get from a dubbed version, even if the person dubbing it is fantastic. And it also means that, for me at least, when I'm watching a subtitled movie, I've got to pay full attention to the screen. I'm not messing around with social media. I'm not looking at my phone to see if there are any Pokemon to catch. I'm totally focused on the movie itself, even if I'm watching it at home. And for me, that makes the experience much more immersive. The more you can watch a movie without distraction, the better you are. So get comfortable with subtitles. It's a skill. It may take a while, but it's very much worth doing. Number 2, build yourself a reference library. I've talked about this before on the channel. And having some movie reference books about the genres that you like is essential. I've got a whole bunch of them. I've got a ridiculous amount of them, but then I've had a long time to acquire them. And the interesting thing about movie books is if you look for movie books around secondhand shops, it can be quite cheap to pick up some really interesting and good stuff. If there's a book fair around, chances are you're going to find some movie reference books about something that you like. Whether it's horror movies or action films or westerns, whatever you like, there's going to be reference books there, and they're much more useful a reference, and you're going to learn a lot more from them than you will just from Wikipedia or IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes. Though reading reviews from other people is always a good thing as well. But for the most part, build a reference library. When you've got some spare time and you want to get away from a screen, sit down on a hammock, sit down on a chair, go to a cafe and just read a movie book. It's going to reward you. Number 3, get the hell out of your comfort zone. There's nothing worse than getting settled into one or two genres that you like and just sitting there and watching them, and eventually you kind of get to that stage where you're flipping channels and you're flipping through streaming services and there's nothing on. Get out of your comfort zone. Watch some movies that you would not otherwise watch. Even if they're chick flicks, even if they're totally outside the kind of stuff you normally watch. Try to find the best of those particular forms of movies and watch them. It's not always going to reward you. Sometimes you got to see stuff that you don't really like, and that's cool. Knowing what you don't like is as important as knowing what you do like. But step out of the comfort zone, and one of the rewards of that is you will find individual movies and maybe actors and maybe directors and maybe stars that really do sit well with you and whose work you enjoy and the stories you enjoy. Chick flicks were the one for me. There are chick flicks that I really like. And chick flicks, of course, is a pejorative term. Let's not use that anymore. But for the most part, I really love stepping outside my comfort zone. Watching cinema I wouldn't ordinarily watch. Try to gauge which is the quality stuff in that particular genre, unless you're looking for something particularly tacky, which again is a bit of fun. Trash movies are great. There's a great essay from the 1960s by Pauline Kael where she kind of outlines how wonderful it is to enjoy trashy cinema. But for the most part, step out of that comfort zone. Get to where your part of your process when you're watching movies and picking movies to watch is to just go somewhere you don't normally go. Number 4, accept the culture changes. Older movies are not going to sit comfortably with you at times. You're going to see older films, classic films, vintage films, films that people say are wonderful. But there's going to be some sexual politics in them. There's going to be some race issues in them. There's going to be some language. There's going to be smoking. There's going to be all sorts of things that aren't culturally appropriate for the second decade of the 21st century, or even the third decade, which we're almost in. But you've got to accept that that is an artifact of its time. And when you do that, there's an interesting thing that happens, at least for me. You see those movies where they're starting to change that narrative, where they are giving us strong female roles, where there are people of colour who have agency in the film. There's a long, slow process of change there. And one of the virtues of seeing old movies is that you start to see where things start to change. And that's the beauty of going into classic cinema. Yes, it's going to piss you off, and yes, it's going to offend you, and yes, it's going to be horrible, and you got to tell yourself that you don't like that actor because they said that thing in that movie, but they're part of an historic process to move culture and society forward. So get accustomed to the fact that culture changes and that society changes, and that the movies you're watching, if you're watching older films, and I definitely recommend that you do, those movies are going to challenge you, but they are of their time, and they will teach you things about that time. Sometimes negative things, sometimes positive things, but you will learn about the times in which those films were made. That leads me to the next bit. Watch black and white movies. I can recall maybe a dozen times in my life where people have told me that they don't like watching black and white movies because they don't look real. Now, it's not really right for you to smack them on the back of the head when they say that. You can try to educate them, but it's an absurd thing. Black and white movies existed because we didn't yet have sufficient technology to cheaply show colour movies. Yes, there were hand-tinted movies as far back as Georges Méliès, but for the most part, black and white movies existed because that is the technology they had. Just like silent movies existed because there wasn't an effective technology for recording sound. Black and white movies also turned that limitation into a virtue. The cinematography of someone like John Alton in a film noir, where the blacks are really deeply shadowed, and he turned the fact that the movies were black and white into part of the world in which the stories are being told. That stuff is beautiful and wonderful. I can't imagine watching Casablanca colorized, though I think it was colorized sometime in the 90s. You don't need to colorize these movies. What you need to do is accept that they're in black and white and love them for that. And even now, where certain people make black and white movies in the modern era, in spite of the fact that color technology is there. Movies like Schindler's List, for instance, and some of the Woody Allen movies, though Woody Allen movies are problematic because of Woody Allen. But there are a lot of movies that are deliberately made in black and white just so they can get that richness of monochrome tone that makes so many of these classic movies just beautiful to watch. And also, you're missing out on maybe half of the history of cinema if you don't watch black and white movies. And you wouldn't want to do that. There's some great stories there, some great actors, some great directors, some beautiful places that you wouldn't see otherwise. So definitely watch black and white movies. Number 6, learn as much as you can about how movies are made. Now, you can do this a number of ways, and they won't cost you anything really. The first one is read scripts. There are a whole bunch of websites that will show you scripts from classic films and allow you to download them as PDF files. Yes, it's a little hard to read them compared to reading a book, but again, like reading subtitles and watching black and white films and accepting cultural change, it's a skill you can acquire. And just seeing how scripts differ from the movie that we ultimately got is a really educational process. The next thing to do to try to learn how films are made is do a video yourself. Get your phone out, shoot some footage, try to tell a story with it. Go and film a kid playing in a park, as long as it's your kid, of course, or somebody you're related to. Or a dog or a cat playing in a yard. Whatever you've got, just take the footage, try to get a few different shots, a long, a medium, a short, and then use some free editing software and put it together yourself. You're going to learn a lot about how a movie's made by making even a simple, silly little movie that you can share on social media yourself. But let your creative flag fly with that. And you will understand and appreciate a lot more what other people go through when they make films. And one of the things to remember too is that every movie you see on a screen is a success at one level. the people who made it got a movie out. They didn't stop halfway through. They got a movie created and out there. And when you actually get involved in that process, you have a finer appreciation of that. One of the other things you can do is something like this that I did. That took me about 3 minutes to do, and it's stupid and dumb and silly, of course. Or even something like this. Play with the special effects you can get on the software. And free software does have special effects as well. But just see how the effects artists work. One of the ways to appreciate how special effects work is to do them even simply and stupidly like I did. But it gives you a greater understanding of what's involved in that watching a documentary extra on a DVD or a Blu-ray isn't going to give you. Play around with it. Play around with the ideas. Write a script of your own and film it on your phone with your friends. Whatever you need to do, just to get that finer appreciation of the things that are required to make a movie. Number 7, build your own movie library. Streaming services are fine, and watching things that come up on broadcasts are fine, but you can lose them. If you're watching something on Netflix, there's no guarantee it's going to be there next week, next month, or next year. And if you like it and you want to go back to it, or if you put it on your list and it suddenly becomes unavailable, it's gone. But if you can buy your own, you've got it there forever. They can't change it. They can't take the guns out of it the way they did in E.T. They can't frig around with it the way Lucas did with the Star Wars trilogy. It's there, it's yours, and unless somebody breaks into your house, they can't take it away from you. And you can also then, beautiful, I love this part, you can then lend friends the movies. What I recommend is you put a sticker with your name on it on the back of the cover, because some people forget they borrow movies off you. Believe me, it happens. But you can then share those movies with your friends. I've got a crazy big video library, not as big as some people, but occasionally I go in there and look at it and kind of get a bit shocked by how many movies I've got. And some of them I pick up cheaply. You can go to thrift stores or disposal stores or op shops, as we call them here in Australia, and you can pick up movies for $1 and $2 these days. People are getting rid of physical media because they're stupid. But you can pick up things you might not otherwise have got for $1 or $2. And if it's going to cost you $1 or $2 to buy these movies, you've got to take a chance on a film. If you think it might be okay, you've got to take a chance on it. And then suddenly you've got a library and you don't know where to put it. But that's another problem entirely. So build yourself a movie library of movies you like. Don't just get them because they're popular at the time. Don't just get them because everybody else is getting them. Make it a reflection of you, and that will reward you. And when you're bored and there's nothing to be seen on the streaming services you'll want to watch, or other things, or if your internet goes down but you've still got power, you can still watch a movie. The next thing, cultivate friends who are movie buffs. This is one of the best resources for appreciating cinema. There are a whole bunch of Facebook groups on it. Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema is one I recommend. Silver, SILVA, and Gold. Shout out to those guys as well. There are YouTube channels, of course, where you can share it as well. And there are also people on Twitter tweeting about movies. But cultivate, and also friends. I mean, you can make friends with people at movies. You have, undoubtedly, I don't doubt for a second, you have a friend who's a movie buff somewhere. Cultivate those people because A, you can go and see movies with them, which is always a lovely thing, and B, they can recommend things to you. There are things that, like I said, are outside your comfort zone that your friends recommend to you. I've got friends who are specialists in certain things. I have a couple of friends who are specialists in Asian cinema, which I'm just getting into, and they really steer you in the direction of the good stuff. It's not always going to be to your taste, but it's already been partly curated by them enjoying it. Cultivate those friends, and also conversely, recommend movies to them. Don't just sponge off their knowledge. Give them what you learn. If you've seen something wonderful, tell them about it. Tell them where they can get it. Tell them a little bit to just give them a taste of it. And it will reward you enormously. So cultivate movie buff friends. Don't let your other friends go by the wayside. You obviously are friends with them for other reasons. But movie buff friends are great fun and are one of the joys of life. Next one, share what you learn. There's no use knowing stuff unless you share it. Now, I've got a couple of ways I share it. I do the podcasts, Paleo Cinema podcast and Martian Drive-In podcast. I've been doing those since 2006. So sharing what you know is always great. Giving back to the community, being a part of that gift economy that we have on the internet is terrific fun. Do a vlog, give a talk, anything you like, but share what you learn. There's no point knowing stuff and keeping it to yourself. Be a part of the conversation. And if you don't do that, and if you just selfishly know all this stuff and never share it at all, there's no point to it apart from your own gratification. And it's not about that. It's about being part of a worldwide conversation about a whole range of things. So even if you're a little shy about it and you're not certain about yourself, I totally understand. We're all like that. We all have imposter syndrome. But share what you know. I've been lucky enough to be able to talk about movies on ABC radio in the Northern Territory for about 10 years now. And just sharing that love of cinema and getting back from the presenters I do it with, things that they like and they think I should watch, and taking me out of the comfort zone there is great. Not everybody has that wonderful opportunity. I appreciate that. But at whatever level you can make yourself available, share what you learn. And finally, the very last thing, learning makes you a better person. Getting some knowledge about things, learning about movies, appreciating movies, sharing that knowledge, going outside your comfort zone, expanding your educational horizons and educating yourself about movies makes you a better person. It brings you in touch with other people. It brings you in touch with other cultures. It brings you in touch with other times. You will benefit as a human being the more you embrace your passion for cinema. We're all on that path. You can either go upwards in life or you can go downwards in life. You can become a better person or you can become an asshole. It's entirely up to you. But if the more you know, if you share things and you become part of the conversation and you don't troll and you don't shit on Star Wars all the time like I do, and I'm guilty of that, and I apologize to all the people I pissed off about that. As long as you're part of the conversation, you'll become a better person. It will make you more educated. It will make you more literate in movies. It will make you want to go to places you might never have wanted to go to before. So those are my 10 ways that I can become a better movie buff. If you've got any I haven't mentioned, please let me know in the comments. I'm always happy to learn. And that's what it's about. It's about learning. So you can subscribe, please do. It'd be nice. You can also give me a thumbs up. You can hit the bell for notifications. And you can go and watch movies. That'd be the best thing you could do. So anyway, I'll be back next week with another video. In the meantime, watch some good movies, watch some bad movies. Tell other people you're watching them. Watch them with friends, watch them alone. But communicate that love and tell people what they should be watching next. Even if they don't want you to. Just hold them down, look them in the eye and say, you should watch French New Wave cinema. Anyway, I'll catch you guys later. Take care of yourselves until then.